Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Comic Book Geezers. I'm your host, Pete, and my co-host.
Hello again. I'm Wild Bill, the Unknown Comic. How you doing, comic book lovers? Welcome back to another edition of Comic Book Geezers. We're paying special tribute to the passing of the great Steve Ditko, the original Spider-Man artist.
Yeah, kind of a sad day. Actually, he passed away a few days back, but an iconic figure in the history of Marvel Comics especially, but as well, he also worked for DC and various other comic publishers, but he will most notably be known for the creating Spider-Man with Stan Lee. That's kind of his signature.
That's his milestone
character.
work of art.
Yeah, so
Spider-Man.
Yeah, so what are we going back to? 1962,
August 62.
1962. This is a reprint. I don't own the actual original issue, but Amazing Fantasy number 15. Who can forget that cover? Not only the kind of coming out party for Spider-Man, but the coming out party for Steve Ditko. Now, the artwork of Steve Ditko, very, very different from a lot of his contemporaries. I mean, if you can't really compare him to Jack Kirby or any of those guys from the 60s because they had this kind of larger-than-life star, the science fiction superhero type thing. And the artwork of Ditko was very, very different. A lot of really thin, a lot less muscular characters, more very realistic, almost like really articulated stick figure type.
Yeah, I was going to say stick man,
right.
But I didn't want to insult.
Well, no, it's not. No, I totally get you. I was thinking about that earlier today, and it's not meant as an insult. It was just different because a lot of the superhero drawings were
his art is more basic, you would say,
right?
Not as elaborate,
but no less enjoyable.
Still,
I think,
still great in its own way.
Yeah. So this is
the
oldest original one I have. This is the Spider-Man number 18. So this is the first appearance of the Sandman. So you can see, again, if you recall seeing the Sandman in Fantastic Four or the Hulk, a little bit different, okay?
Bulkier.
Much bulkier.
Yeah.
Same thing with Spider-Man. Spider-Man as drawn by Johnny Romita and various other people after Ditko left the series, much different. Spider-Man looks like a teenager here.
Yeah.
Right? So, and again...
kind of wimpy,
Many will recall this depiction of Spider-Man would appear in the cartoon. They would use that frame over and over again. See, I dig it.
We've had this discussion before. Those 12 still panels, still frames over and over again.
But you know what it is? When I was a kid, I was so into it that it just forever got ingrained in my head. So I can watch them today, and still, especially season 1.
It wasn't until I read the books that I became a Spider-Man fan.
Yeah,
when I was a teenager.
So a classic creation of Ditko and Lee. Classic villain, probably one of the most memorable villains in all of Marvel's history, is of course the Green Goblin.
Green Goblin.
Now, this is not the original appearance of the Green Goblin. It's, I think, the third.
Wasn't issue 6 or something the first one?
Yeah,
with the little broom Batwing that he had, and he was up on the ceiling.
Yeah.
I think it's issue number 6. I think
that's going for a lot of money right now, but I'm happy to have this particular one here. Here is the first appearance of another creation by Mr. Ditko, the Molten Man.
Yeah, I have the later issues in the 130s and Molten Man.
Another classic villain. I just got a hold of this one. It's not in very good condition, but you know what? It was a good price, and
I have none of these.
The Scorpion.
I'm feeling jealous right now, kids.
Here we got number 30, the Claws of the Cat. Not relating to
the black cat.
Not the black cat.
She comes around later in life.
Right.
I have those.
This is a great, great Ditko cover.
Kraven the Hunter.
Kraven the Hunter. I believe the third appearance of Kraven.
He was in those Spider-Man cartoons, wasn't he?
He certainly was, yeah. Yeah, in those Spider-Man cartoons, you had the Green Goblin, Kraven, the Lizard, Electro, Scorpion. I'm trying to think of who else. Did Kingpin ever show up? Kingpin showed up on those.
How many seasons did it go?
It went 5 seasons, but or 4.
And how many episodes per season? Would you say 10, maybe 12?
Yeah, something
long?
A dozen, maybe 15. Yeah. I will say though, because I recently bought up the box set that has them all on.
That was my next question.
Season 1 is actually very good. Season 1 has all the classic villains, but man, the following seasons, you could tell they had no budget left. They stopped using all the classic villains, and they would just retread giant dinosaurs and giant monsters.
So now you know, kids, why I didn't like it so much.
But Season 1 is very good. So here's another appearance of the Molten Man, another great cover.
See, when you grow up on Bugs Bunny cartoons and Disney movies with classic animations, and you go to a cartoon with 15 still frames that were taken out of a comic book to make it into a cartoon, it didn't deliver for me.
And what's funny, you would think back in the day that Marvel would have had
The budget
to do that. I mean, I know
well, those cartoons really came out in the '60s, correct?
Yeah.
And then when I was a kid in the '70s, they were rehashed and repeats.
Yeah. Here's another very cool Ditko cover.
They also had cartoons of the Hulk and Iron Man too.
They did,
right?
And Submariner.
Okay.
But they were awful. They were like literally, they would take the drawings from the comic, shoot them with a camera, and do a little movement with the mouth. That's exactly It's the worst. Go on YouTube. They're all available on YouTube. It's the worst stuff ever. Yeah. It's like it's cool if you want to like kind of see the comics,
the evolution
with voices behind them. But it's just so weird. They're standing there and
no action.
Yeah, it's the weirdest stuff. So this is the second to last issue that Ditko worked on.
Right.
Number 37. 38 was to be his last issue that he worked on for Spider-Man before the next crew
That's
came
still
in.
a great cover.
Very good.
I like that split screen kind of thing. Feature.
Now, one thing I want to point out, because we're going to show them soon in a minute, is notice the kind of the different colors, almost like the psychedelic colors used on this particular one. He would take that to another level with Doctor Strange shortly thereafter this, which is the next series he worked on.
So let's see some of those.
So let's do that. So now, I don't have a lot of the early Strange Tales issues with Doctor Strange. I have a ton of them, which you'll see on a future episode with Nick Fury.
If you want to see more, then watch our Doctor Strange episode.
That is correct. This is the oldest one that I have, number 146. Again, see those colors? Let's draw a little comparison here. All of a sudden, these kind of oranges and reds and yellows are starting to kind of creep in. This would run rampant throughout his work on the Strange Tales series between Doctor Strange and Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was drawn by Jack Kirby. Now, I do, however, have a very cool Marvel Masterworks volume
Graphic novel
that contains all of the
work
Steve
that he
Ditko
did.
worked on in the Strange
Tales
so
series.
This is some fantastic stuff. Bill, I don't know if you can reach around and maybe like pull through some of the pages here, but this Thor.
All right.
But it's just a great representation of the
shooting the rays,
yeah,
magic, his power versus his power.
Yep.
And
classic.
Go ahead, you go.
Villains, Dormammu and Eternity.
Coming a little closer. All right.
And you'll see he had like mostly a blue.
Oh, look at that cover.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mostly a blue costume back in the day. But again, you see how thin, all the characters are. There's Thor.
Is that Loki? No, I'm seeing somebody in green.
Yeah, it's Loki.
It
Loki
is.
and Thor, yeah. So very cool. Baron Mordo. Very kind of mystical, little bits of sci-fi. This is like a
Did he do any work at all on the Silver Surfer?
No, he probably would have been a very cool choice too, though, I think. So another classic character created by Ditko that, obviously went on to greater fame with other artists taking over. But again, iconic stuff for sure. You also worked a lot on a lot of the Monster Tales.
I've shown this one before on one of our horror episodes. This has 6 different stories inside. This cover is by John Romita. But I'm going to bring it, I'll show it, I got it right here.
Yeah, the very last story in that book.
This one right here is the artwork of Steve Ditko.
Yep.
And this, I guess you could consider like a cover page. And again, with the thin characters. Let's flip around. Look how he draws their faces.
Yeah. Vintage Ditko.
And this will give you an idea.
Most of these classic Marvel artists from back in the day had a certain way of drawing faces. We talk all the time about the Kirby jawline, but look at the Ditko faces too. The long nose.
And this mugshot up top.
Yeah.
So he had his artwork almost looks like it's from the 50s. And this book is from 1971, but these are reprints of older books from the 50s.
That's a great point. It was definitely an older style.
I think I've shown this one off recently too. I just picked this up in the spring. But again, Ditko is in here. This is like 5 or 6 different stories compiled together. Again, this is a book reprinted from 71, but this is a story in the book and there's the credits at the bottom, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. But look at how he draws the car.
Yep.
Like other comics that'll be, looking more futuristic, squared off. Even look how he draws the kids here, you know. So he has a look at this guy's face. We were talking about faces before.
Look at that long nose, the long chin. This is not a Kirby jaw, right?
No.
This is, look at that. Very pointed features. Like everybody's like based on like old men.
This chin reminds me of like a Mardi Gras face mask.
Yep.
With the pointed chin, almost like the Joker.
Yep, that's
kind of
true.
thing, like a Joker chin. But
very angular, pointed features. But you know, the funny thing is, if you look at pictures of Steve Ditko, that's what he looked like. It's almost like he was like drawing
a self-portrait.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Very, very different.
Interesting.
And another interesting thing about the Ditko illustrations, and you might probably recall this. A lot of times, especially in fight scenes, he would draw like, you know how the human body, the joints move a certain way.
Yeah.
He would draw them like bent in all sorts of weird ways. So like a lot of times you see Spiderman, and he'd be bent in all sorts of weird ways shooting his web. Same thing with Doctor Strange shooting out all his magic bursts. Weird angles, and like so you know the joints go this way, but
you knew the character was in motion.
Yeah,
it was like a still frame of a swinging arm.
So he left Marvel Comics to go work for DC for quite a number of years throughout the 70s, but he came back later in the decade to take over for Jack Kirby in his fairly popular Machine Man series.
Mid-70s,
yeah,
late
so
70s.
79 actually. So with issue number 10, so Kirby stepped away from Machine Man because Kirby at the time was working on Machine Man, Eternals,
Devil
Dinosaur, 2001, filling a little on Captain America. So he started with issue 10. I will tell you, I love Steve Ditko, but this comic was never the same after Kirby left. Yeah.
Because Kirby was writing and
the story,
and editing,
the whole shebang. And at the time, Kirby was into this whole like sci-fi thing. His creative juices were flowing, and Ditko basically just stepped in and was like, "Okay, I'll do the drawing." And it was never the same. You can even tell by like the cover artwork. As cool
Ditko
as it is,
did art. He didn't write.
No, he didn't write. Yeah, he just did the artwork. So again, all of a sudden, you know, Machine Man went to being this kind of thin character with the arms shooting out all over the place, and
this one,
good, but
this is my only copy of Machine Man in my collection.
Yeah,
these are all Pete's books, by the way.
You know, and here we have we're coming into the 80s here, so 40 cents. Got the Fantastic Four in this one. You know, Machine Man would continue to be a character that would pop up all over the place. He was in a bunch of issues of the Hulk.
Yeah, I have those.
He was fought Iron Man, and you know he's popped up all over the place. I hate this. I know I pointed this out before. Yeah. I hated when they were doing that crap. This is actually kind of a cool cover, though. Alpha Flight, and then the last issue of the first run of Machine Man is number 19. They would.
Is that the final issue?
Final issue. They would bring Machine Man back again a few years later, I think in the mid-80s.
Oh, Volume 2?
Yeah, Volume 2, I think it was a four-issue run or something like that. So here's an interesting one. This is also from 79. So Marv Wolfman and Steve Ditko had put together a story and artwork that they had wanted to be included in the Godzilla run. So basically the villain was going to be Dragon Lord to go against Godzilla. Stan and the rest of the editorial staff kind of didn't think it fit, right? So they opted not to go with that, but they allowed Marv and Steve to go and finish up the story. You keep it, but without Godzilla for inclusion in number... what is this?
5?
Yeah, this is the second run of Marvel Spotlight, number
Volume
5.
2?
Volume 2. It's called The Dragon Lord.
And this book is from 79?
79. Okay, the character went never to be seen again, unfortunately. But
it's a great cover, though.
Yeah, and
it's kind of Doctor Strange looking here.
It is, yeah.
Going back, you know.
And now I got to tell you,
the only thing missing is the 2 points up over the head. You know,
on the back of the
back collar. Yeah.
Yep. I haven't read this since I bought it on the stand back in 79. I couldn't even tell you what this is about. In fact, I had totally forgotten that Steve Ditko even worked on this until I was doing research for this show. So I'm going to have to check it out just to see.
I was kind of pressed for time, so I didn't really have too many books labeled with Steve Ditko. Usually I'll write the artist's name on the back of the books.
So, but a sad loss, and it's interesting. I just kind of want to end this with a little... I did a little bit of reading about this on the internet before we did this show, and from a number of people who were kind of reminiscing about Ditko. He was not one of those guys who would like show up at Comic-Cons and sign books and things like that. He was never that artist, and in fact,
he wasn't stricken by fame.
No, not at all. In fact, he went on record numerous times and said, "You know what? drawing comics is a job for me. After I'm done, I don't want. It's not part of my job to go and be signing autographs. And
Yeah, he wasn't like a
He
rock
was-
star
no,
type.
He was never into that.
He wasn't into the spotlight or the limelight part of it.
Yeah,
so to
which
speak.
is a shame because he worked on so many iconic books that I think a lot of people would have really embraced him to be part of that kind of Comic-Con culture, but he opted not to do that. And sadly, he died all by himself in his apartment in New York City at age 90.
On June 29th?
June 29th,
2018?
Yeah, he had a history of heart disease, so
90 years old, lived a
Yeah.
full life.
although Bill and I were questioning why someone 90 years old was living on their own in an apartment in New York City, but because they didn't discover, they didn't find him for a couple days,
Sadly.
which is a shame. Yeah, it's a shame that someone of that stature dies alone. But anyway, that's our little tribute to Steve Ditko, another one of the Marvel
Greats of all time in
Yeah.
comic book history.
Marvel and DC greats of all time, and like he'll never be forgotten because those early issues of Spider-Man. I mean, look at all those classic villains that he helped create: Doctor Octopus and the Green Goblin, Molten Man, Electro, Kraven the Hunter, Scorpion. I mean,
Did he help with the Kingpin, or was that after?
that was after, actually.
Okay.
That was after. But still, all those other ones, just the Chameleon. I mean, tons of great villains. So anyway,
He will be missed.
may he rest in peace. So thanks for watching another edition of Comic Book Geezers. I am Pete.
And I'm Wild Bill, your co-host.
We've got some great shows coming up for you. We've got Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Finally, we've got more
Female
heroes. We've also got, what else? The Eternals. We're going to do a whole Jack Kirby thing on the Eternals.
So stay tuned and keep watching and keep subscribing and tell your friends.
Yep.
And thanks again for watching. I'm Wild Bill saying peace out.
And peace. See you next time.